It's just so good for my mental health. I love it so much. This actually ended up being one of the largest tornado outbreaks in history, which was, it was cool to just see something like that, just experience that. There weren't a lot of fatalities or devastation, which was another plus. But where I was kind of right, and I know I'm stepping away from the mic, but I was kind of like down here. So I saw a couple of these, the red dots are tornado reports. So I saw a couple of those, but I actually didn't get any good photos from this event. And I'll kind of explain a little more as I go on for these different storm chases, but the Storm Prediction Center issues these convective outlooks, and it goes from a 0 to 5 scale with like no thunderstorm risk, then general thunderstorms, and then it's marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and then high for risk of severe weather. So a high risk or a 5 out of 5 on the scale is very rare. It maybe only happens once a year. And it means there is really the potential for an outbreak of either tornadoes or just widespread severe weather. So there was actually a high risk a couple days ago on Saturday, another one of those rare events. So just a few photos from that march. Wood ducks have also become a favorite of mine, but down at the bottom you can see that long-staying Harlequin duck, which was, it was a male, but it just hadn't gone into its full breeding plumage yet. But to see a Harlequin duck from like 5 feet away, it doesn't matter what plumage it's in, it's just a beautiful bird, and just an incredible experience to see one that close and be able to just study it and watch it in a river in Ypsilanti of all places. Owls has also become a big, I don't know, a photographic topic of mine, especially screech owls. So I don't know if you can tell, but this screech owl photo, like basically all of my screech owl photos, is taken after sunset. And I'll let you guys in on a little secret that I have for photographing screech owls. I love to photograph them maybe about 20 minutes after sunset on a tripod with either some sort of like wide aperture lens, 2.8 or f4, just something that lets in a lot of light, and then use a slow shutter speed between like half a second to sometimes even 2 seconds. The owls are very like relatively still at that time, but they're active. They're not just in their cavities like sleeping. This is when they're beginning to hunt. So I'll go out and kind of look for different cavities where screech owls are, usually along rivers is where I have my best luck with old growth forests around it. And they'll be in these mature trees that have tree cavities. And once I find like an owl, then I'll just come back and just wait, like at sunset. And they'll perk up, get out of their cavities, and then hop to like an open branch. They love going to open branches to start hunting. So I found that I'm able to get really unique photos of screech owls that way. And I learned that from one of my great friends who is also one of my storm chasing partners. That I think I have maybe a photo of him in there, but my friend Matt Zero is definitely someone that you guys should also look up on either Instagram, Facebook, eBird, whatever. He is another amazing photographer and someone that has helped me become really a birder. He's the one who took me to SACSIM in 2021 and is my main storm chasing partner. So he is definitely someone that I also really look up to and thank a lot for helping me become the person that I am today. So now going into April 2023, that's when migration, of course, is really starting to get going. Like I know migration of March is it's heating up. It's heating up right now. But once we get into April, it's like, wow, we're really starting to get a good push of new birds that are showing up. And 2023 was no exception. Cinnamon teal, like the one that's in Muskegon wastewater area right now, showed up this time in Shiawassee. And I did a little bit of a unique experience for that. I got into waders and a little blind, and it was in like a tiny flooded area, and it was right by an observation tower at Shiawassee. So I just kind of snuck in after it had been around for a few days and just sat in the water and waited for it to come out into the open. And you'll see one of the photos that I got from that experience the next slide. Some other things that showed up, I got to see Brewer's blackbirds, which was a lifer for me. Shorebirds started flooding in as we got later into April. Their Smith's longspur showed up in Berrien County, which was, that ended up being a lifer for me. And I think that was with certain wind patterns. If I remember correctly, it was like stronger southwest winds, and just the time of either southwest or southeast winds, and the time of year was just right to blow these migrants that are usually migrating off to the west into Michigan. And I also got to see lark sparrows and summer tanager on the east side of the state, and a white-eyed vireo. What I didn't get to see was a little blue heron, which I had tried to get the same day as the lark sparrow and the Smith's longspurs. Sometimes you cannot see everything you want to see, and that is something that I've learned that is a valuable lesson in birding. You just can't see everything all the time. Like, I know, for me, I know birding is really addicting, and there are times where I'm like, wow, I am honestly really down and sad that I didn't get to see this bird. But I've learned that it's okay. It is really okay to not see everything. Like, the world just has a weird way of working. Like, the time will come when you're able to see something, and when that time comes, it always works out where it's magical. But that time is sometimes not the present, and that is just something that you have to be okay with. So that cinnamon teal is down on the bottom left. It came right out in the open for us. Me and my friend had done the same thing. We were right next to each other. It was a bird that a lot of people got to see, but it was more like tucked in, like in the back with a bunch of trees and everything. So to be able to see that out in the open, something that's not supposed to be here, and just a beautiful bird, just like being able to look at these photos again, and just the rich red colors of the cinnamon teal with some green as well on the wings. Like, it's just being able to see that bird up close. It's just an incredible experience. Horned grebes I was able to see up close and just experience those was also really cool. Starting to get into warbler migration. Kessling Nature Preserve down in Berrien County is always, it's a little bit of my go-to in April, as that's like the first place that a lot of migrating warblers seem to start to show up. And it's a really good place for yellow-throated warbler as well, which I know we don't get many locations in the state to be able to see those. So that's just a little another, if you want to drive a little bit, it's Kessling Nature Preserve in Berrien County is one of my favorite little spots to start to see migrating warblers come in. But like I mentioned, April was also when I started to get into some more storm chases. So this one was one that went a little better than the event that happened a few days beforehand in March. Me and this time my friend Matt, we targeted what was supposed to be in eastern Iowa, and we ended up actually in western Illinois. And this is where I've started to do I like to bird in the morning before a storm chase and then see tornadoes in the afternoon. Most severe weather happens either in the evening or late afternoon, just because that's it requires a lot of heating throughout the day to create the necessary energy for thunderstorms to form. So what better way to spend the time than birding before storms form? So we actually birded Nature Preserve out in Iowa before that. We saw any storms that day. And we ended up seeing multiple tornadoes, which including a long tract and powerful EF3. So that's the enhanced Vegeta scale. It's a way that tornadoes are rated by the amount of damage that they cause. So a 3 is a strong tornado and about like middle to upper middle of the scale. It goes from a 0 to 5 scale again. EF0 is a pretty weak tornado, something that maybe just will take like tree limbs down or knock a fence over. And that goes all the way up to EF5, which is something that'll take even a building like this and reduce it to nothing. It'll take a well-built home and reduce it to its foundation, wiped clean. So that's those are the most powerful tornadoes on Earth. And that is something that I luckily haven't come across yet. Because I do love tornadoes, but I do not like seeing the devastation that they cause. So that is luckily something I haven't come across yet. So here's a few photos from that day. The one on the left, that is actually the long-tracked EF3 tornado in its very beginning stages. I don't know if you'll be able to see because I can barely tell, and I was there, but there is a little bit of dust that is kicked up right at the bottom. Like this like lowering here is the funnel, and there's a little bit of like darker area below that funnel, and that is the dust of the actual ground circulation of the tornado itself ongoing. And the image on the right is taken maybe 30 seconds earlier, and that's like a wide view of this thunderstorm that produced the tornado. And being able to see a storm with just all these different striations and just circular motion and what looks like sometimes stacked pancakes on top of each other, like that's why I go out and storm chase, is to be able to see beautiful scenes like that. And this tornado, it ended up not hurting anyone. It did damage some buildings, but being able to see stuff like that out in basically the middle of nowhere, it's just something that has captivated me so much. And that's why I ended up doing a ton of storm chasing in my life. But back to birds, because I didn't end up doing much more storm chasing until June of 2023. May is the biggest month for spring migration for sure, and really migration in general. When it's May, you chase, is kind of what's a saying in the storm chasing community. That's very much true for the birding community as well. That's when there is a lot of good birds moving through our state and just in general in the US. So there were a lot of birds to chase in May of 2023. Right off the bat, a vermilion flycatcher showed up in Macomb County. I'm not sure if anyone went and got that, but it was a beautiful, stunning male that had showed up with the beautiful rich red colors on it. So I went and got that, and I think that was May 2nd. And then Tawa State Park, which I am so disappointed that it is closed this year, all throughout May, because I went there multiple times in 2023 and 2024 and saw just some incredible birds. It's an amazing place for shorebirds, warblers. At that time, in 2023, there was a Eurasian tree sparrow that was also showing up to the feeders there. I know last year they had a spotted towhee show up, summer tanagers. It's just such an incredible park. So it is a shame that it is closed this year for construction, because that's just one less spot that we'll all be able to go visit and see the beautiful birds that show up in our state. Point Muley is another place that I don't know if anyone has been out there, but that is another mecca in Michigan for birding, and a place that I visit probably way too much, but it's only 45 minutes from my house. And I got to see a Connecticut warbler that was not buried in brush. I got to actually see one walking out in the open on like a wide open stick. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, because not only did I get to see it out in the open, I got to see it walking, doing its little footsteps just right up a branch. And that was just, I was not used to seeing a warbler actually just walking, taking a casual stroll. But that's what Connecticut warblers do. It's one of their calling cards. So to be able to see that was an incredible experience outside of their breeding grounds. And I also made many trips to Whitefish Point, of course, in 2023 and 2024. So there I got to see, there were black-backed woodpeckers in the area, different shorebirds and warblers. But what I didn't get to see, frustratingly, was the Swainson's hawk and Mississippi kite that flew over the hawk deck within 2 hours of each other, because I went to go see the tricolored heron in Lake St. Clair Metro Park in Macomb County. Sometimes you make the wrong call for storm chasing or birding, and those are sometimes the consequences that you have to live with. I, against the better judgment of myself and people that were telling me not to leave Whitefish Point that day, I went and was like, I gotta go see this tricolored heron. Like, I'm doing a Michigan Big Ear. I had decided in May that I think I'm gonna do a Michigan Big Ear. So I was like, oh, I gotta go get this bird. And then, like 2 hours into my drive, boop, Swainson's hawk just flew over. And I was like, okay, whatever. There's still a tricolored heron. I'm really excited. A couple hours after that, I got the notification that the Mississippi kite had also flown over. And these are both birds that I still haven't seen to this day in Michigan. That hurt. That made the drive really tough. and that was on Memorial Day, so there's a lot of traffic. I'm stuck in traffic all the way down 75. I get to like St. Clair Metro Park, and they close the park because it's at like over capacity. So at that point, I was just beat. I had to stop, take a minute, take a step back, and be like, it's okay, it's just birds. Like, I love birds so much, but at the end of the day, it is just birds. Like, it's not the end of the world. I was able to go park somewhere else, walk into the park, and I did see the tricolored heron. It was just sitting right there out in the open. But at the end of the day, I gained like 95 different bird species in Michigan that month. From my year total. So that brought me all the way up to 277 already in May. So that's why at that point I decided, yeah, I should probably do a Michigan Big Year. I'm getting close to 300, which is the de facto Michigan Big Year total. So it's like, I'm getting pretty close. I'm not even, I'm almost 25 species away. And I did get 8 lifers that month and 8 safe birds. And in general, in total, I got up to 232 species of birds in just that month. So I guess that kind of ended up being a big month on top of the big year. And I wasn't the only person to do that. There were a couple of people that I know. I don't know, Justin Labadie is a big bird on the east side of the state. He got 242, so 10 more than me. Like, it's another one of those situations where we're just kind of feeding off of each other of, okay, we see this, now that makes me want to go see this bird. Oh, now this person saw this bird, so I want to go see this. And it's just, I like the friendly competition that develops sometimes in birding. Because I know sometimes it can almost seem like it's a serious competition, but at the end of the day, it shouldn't be. It should be more about seeing the different types of birds and just experiencing nature with not just myself, but with other people. Like, this ended up, it was a friendly competition for myself to see how many birds that I could see in 2023 and then 2024, and I definitely pushed myself a lot. But at the end of the day, I was just happy to see birds. Birds just make me just so happy. So that's really why I went and ended up starting this month of saying, wow, I'm going to see as many birds as possible. Because birds they make me happy. And I feel like they should make everyone else happy. And I like to encourage everyone else to go see birds. Like, I've had my coworkers, like, not make fun of me, but jab and be like, you're driving 5 hours from work right now, all the way up to Whitefish Point to go just see a bird and then drive back to be at work the next day? Heck yeah, I am. I'll get to that exact scenario that happened in 2024 because they're just awesome. Why would I not go see these cool birds? So some of the photos that I saw from May of 2023, it was a very heavy warbler month, that's for sure. The Connecticut warbler is down the middle of the bottom, right out in the open. I've never seen that again, a freaking Connecticut warbler out in the open. I have to stress that because it's just so bizarre to me. The vermilion flycatcher, sharp-tailed grouse I got to see kind of out in the open up in the eastern UP. The cerulean warblers, which is another warbler that I've fallen in love with, like those striking blues on the males, but also the females. I've come to learn, the plumage on these male birds, they're stunning. Everyone loves the rich colors, but there's something interesting about female birds too. They're more subtle and subdued plumage. Has a lot of striking details that I've come to really appreciate. And maybe that's just because I've come to appreciate a lot of birds. And why I like talking about birds and trying to get everyone else to appreciate the beauty of birds. So spring migration, it comes and goes. It's quick, it's very intense. Once we get into the summer, things start to slow down. Unless you're me in 2024, which I'll get to. Things, I guess, just don't slow down. But in 2023, I didn't really go out and see too many more birds. I only added 13 birds to my year total across the whole summer. But I did do a little more traveling. So that got me a lot of lifers, and I went outside of the state. During a Michigan Big Year, I went outside of the state. It was very risky, but it worked out for me twice that summer, where no birds showed up in Michigan that I wanted to see or needed to see for my Big Year. So I got pretty lucky with that. But some stuff that I did see in Michigan was a laughing gull, the ferruginous hawk on the west side of the state, which was an incredible bird to see and find. Kayla Putnam was able to track that down with just local knowledge of Newaygo County. It was like, oh, the bird's gonna show up. It's gonna be right here at the Rice Lake Flats. It's gonna be just right there next morning, and there it was. So to be able to watch other birders like just have this just intuitive knowledge of Michigan and just birds in general, just learn from them, learn how they find birds has been just a really eye-opening experience for me in the past couple of years. I also got to see Hudsonian godwit, state first white-winged tern that showed up the east side of the state. What has been, I guess, a little tradition now for mine for the past few years is limpkins, which is one of the birds that got me really into this whole big year birding extravaganzas from 2022. I got to see one on in White Lake in the Pontiac area in 2023. The roseate spoonbill that showed up in the Jackson area in July, and then I also got to see the swallowtail kite that showed up right in Allegan County in 2023. It took multiple tries to see that bird. It was an incredible, frustrating bird for me for some reason. I think I tried like at least 4 times to see it. I feel like everyone else would get to see it, but whenever I'd go out there, for some reason, it just wasn't there. But I just used my little patience of just realizing it's okay. I'll see it when I see it, and then 4th time's a charm for me, and I got to see that bird. But I also got to do a lot more storm chasing and international birding in the summer of 2023. June 15th, there was a moderate risk of severe weather in Texas and Oklahoma. It was my first time flying out to go storm chasing. Usually I'm used to driving 10, 12, 20 hours one way in a car to drive out to some crazy place like Colorado or Texas or something to see storms. So this was a nice change of pace to actually fly out and not have to be in a car for 20 hours one way and then have to drive back another 20 hours. I got to see my 100th tornado, which it felt like an accomplishment for me. Many people don't get to see one tornado in their lives. So for me to see 100, it was a very humbling and just welcoming experience to be able to see that many violent and awe-inspiring creatures of the atmosphere. But on the downside, the flip side of that, we destroyed the windshield of the car that I was in for my friend's car, that storm chase. I actually remember I posted those photos on the Discord in the photo sharing channel. It's like, wow, I got to see all these tornadoes. Wow, we destroyed the windshield and had glass fly at us. Like I actually swallowed a piece of glass and just felt that for a couple days, like just that scratch feeling in my throat. Because it was either we drive into the tornado or we drive into the hail. And I like living, like a lot of people I would assume. So driving into the tornado wasn't an option. So we chose driving to the hail because at least we won't get blown away. But we put on our safety goggles that we had in the car and we braced for impact, and yeah, it was intense. I've never experienced something like that before, of having just glass shards flying in my face with hail that ended up being the softball size at one point. Like that is like about roughly this big. Like that is 4 inches in diameter. That is huge. That'll hurt you for sure if you get hit by it. So I'd rather take the glass flying in my face than being hit in the head by a hailstone like that. But despite having what was honestly a little bit of a traumatic experience like that, and something that affected, I think, my friend more than I did, we went back out 2 days later because we're just that inspired by severe weather and addicted to it, really, just like birding, that no matter what kind of setbacks or failures we run into, we just keep on trucking because, man, tornadoes and birds are just that cool to see. So a couple days later, we had a weak tornado, and we had some incredible storm structure. But what I also had was multiple lifers of different birds, like black-capped vireos in Oklahoma. like around like the day before and the day after storm chasing. And that was cool to start doing some birding outside of the state and expanding my horizons instead of just staying in Michigan, driving all across the state to see different stuff, being able to see different birds that I don't get to see at all in Michigan and different parts of the country. And eventually, later that summer, yeah, of course.
So windshield gets smashed up, you just keep going?
Yep. We drove all the way back to my friend's house with a smashed windshield. And that was tough. That was really tough because we couldn't really see that well. So I was like, all right, you know, we were able to kind of look out the side windows and be able to somewhat look through the front windshield. But I was like, we were not going to be able to take this car the rest of this trip. And I had to pay my friend $200 for a new windshield because it was kind of my call of staying where we were at for far too long to where we were kind of in that life or death situation of either driving to the tornado or driving to the hail. So I was like, I think that's fair enough to pay for your new windshield. So on a little less life-threatening trip, in August, I actually went to Newfoundland, which was my first international birding trip. And yeah, that was a risk taking a trip like that when I, at that point, was fully committed to Michigan Big Year. Nothing showed up in the state at that point. Somehow I got lucky. Things, I guess, just sometimes work out. So I got to see so many really cool birds. Atlantic puffins, which were quite literally 2 feet away from us at one point. Northern gannets, razorbills, black guillemots, common murres, the stellar sea eagle, which I think is still at least going back and forth between Maine and Newfoundland all the way up to this year. Pink-footed goose, shearwaters, just so many really cool birds. Newfoundland is definitely a place I would recommend people go to if they want to see different like nesting seabirds and especially puffins up in Elliston in Newfoundland. And I think the stellar sea eagle is still around. It is definitely a bird to get if you care about either your ABA list or something, because that's just not a bird you're going to get unless you either get really lucky by going to Newfoundland or get extremely lucky going into Alaska and you get a really rare one to fly over. And as I'll show in the photos, we actually got really close views of that bird, which was one of our goals for the trip, was to see the stellar sea eagle. Like it's a little bit bigger, I think like 33% roughly bigger than a bald eagle. It's got some different plumage to it. It's such a stunning bird. And we took what ended up kind of being a little pelagic to see it. It was one of these like little Zodiac boats for whale watching. But the guide for the company, they had been taking everyone out to see the stellar sea eagle. So they were like, any birders, raise your hand and you get set on this boat. So me, my friend, and a couple other birders that were there at the same time, we all went to this one boat. And they actually did a little pelagic for us, so that's how I got to see some of my lifer shearwaters and such. It was that little boat ride. They were like, okay, we're gonna go take you out to this place where there's nesting puffins, and we're gonna look for shearwaters, and we'll look for the sea eagle. So that is something I would definitely recommend, even just without the sea eagle being there, if it's not there like this year. Still just going to Newfoundland, doing a little boat tour like that, going to Elliston, seeing the puffins up close. It was a trip of a lifetime. And it was something that we didn't have a guide for. It was something that me and my friend, we just kind of planned ourselves looking on eBird. eBird has been my best friend for these past few years of where people are seeing birds and at what time. So I definitely love all the resources that eBird has. So some of the photos from that summer, the roseate spoonbill that had shown up in Jackson was just simply incredible to see. The limpkin, Hudsonian godwits, like just so many of these cool birds. And being able to then just go back, even now, I love going back now in 2025 and looking at photos from either 2022 or 2023, just to see like, just these different little details, just the way that the pink hues are on this roseate spoonbill. It's not like the adult breeding plumage, but to just see just the way that the pinks are and a younger bird like that. Or the limpkin of just it's a bird I don't get to see much since normally they're in Florida. They're not supposed to be in Michigan. But just to be able to just look at the different details of it and just study it and just realize for in the future what I'm looking for in different birds that I see out in the wild where you don't get those close looks. Being able to get different like habits and different plumage details. Some more birds that I got to see, the ferruginous hawk that showed up, the white-winged tern as well. On the bottom, the black-capped vireo that I got to see out in Oklahoma, like right out in the open. It's one of only the few breeding spots for that bird species in the U.S. is the Wichita Mountains. And I figured, well, if I'm down there, I might as well go see it. So along with the birds that I got to see, these are a couple of the storms that I got to see in that plains trip. On the right is my 100th tornado, which was actually a pretty decent looking tornado, at least in my opinion. Like it wasn't something that was what's kind of known, actually funny enough, as a bird fart in the weather community of a really weak, brief tornado. And I find that funny, like just a little bit of even birding is just sprinkled in for slang and storm chasing. It's just, I like how these two hobbies just always seem to find a way to relate to each other. And then on the left is one of the storms that I got to see, which just these different like striations of the storm and just the way that it's all rotating in together. It's something that sadly a photo can't fully convey just the motion of these storms. So that's why I'm a photographer. I don't take too much video, and that's just something I'm bad at, I feel like. So I do have a few videos from the 2024 storm chasing, so I'll try to get into that, as I know slowly I'm running out of time. So I'll quickly go through some Newfoundland photos. Like not only were the puffins amazing, but also just all the different other birds that I got to see: gannets, kittiwakes, common murres, the pink-footed goose, the shearwaters, and on the right is the Seller seagull, which was one of the crown jewels for that trip. And just you can see it's an eagle, but you can see how also it's different than a bald eagle. It doesn't have that white head for the male or for the adults, but it does just have this really striking big yellow beak, these beautiful white wing patches on the shoulders. It's just, you wouldn't think like it's such a stunning bird, but it's just amazing. And just to see the size difference between that and the bald eagles that are around, there were probably like 40 bald eagles around at that time. So you could visually see just the naked eye how this was a much bigger bird than those. And those birds are big in of themselves. They're bald eagles, they're big. So to be able to see an even bigger eagle, it's just like, wow, that is just incredible. And of course, I can't not include puffins. I mean, they're puffins, they're Atlantic puffins. How could you go wrong with that? It's something that I'll have to go see again. Now that I've kind of got my girlfriend interested, I've got her wanting to go see puffins. So I'm like, well, if that's the case, I wouldn't mind going back. Because just, they're so cute, they're clown birds. I mean, I don't know what words to say, they're puffins. They're just incredible birds to see, and I recommend everyone go see puffins. So I guess I'll try to speed it up a little more quickly because I really do want to cover 2024. The fall of 2023 was really where I started to go to Whitefish Point. It felt like every weekend or every other weekend. I probably made at least 6 trips up there. So at that point I was like, I just need to start seeing as many birds as possible. I hit my 300th bird in the end of September, and that ended up being a Western cattle egret. So I was very happy to see that. I figured at that point I just got to start seeing more and more and just see how far I can get. So a few photos that I got from September. And then going into October was more of Whitefish Point trips. I got to see my lifer Harris's sparrow. I got to see some Savin's gulls. And at that point it was also when I got into a little bit of where the weather and the birds really start to combine. I found, with me and Danny actually, we found a tropical kingbird, which was the 4th state record for Michigan. And I'm not sure if anyone here went and saw that bird, but I know a lot of people, at least from the east side, went and saw that kingbird. It was stuck around for I think about 14 days or so. And that I'll get into a little more is how I use weather forecasting to actually really go out there and look for a possible rare bird. I had no clue that there would actually be a crazy rarity like that, but what I look for a lot with weather for birds is the wind. The wind is one way is that birds either end up in places that they shouldn't be or migrate. So for lake watching is where I'll do a lot of my forecasting. As I'll look for different wind directions are like important for different lakes. So for Lake Michigan on this side of the state, a northwest wind is favorable, especially down in Berrien County for different migrating birds to either show up like Jaegers or different gulls, ducks, anything that will be migrating or use the water. It seems like a northwest wind for Lake Michigan is favorable. But for the east side of the state, Lake Huron, a northeast wind is what I'm looking for. But for Lake Erie, which is what ended up being for the tropical kingbird, I had saw that there were winds that were going to be coming out more from the east-northeast, really strong. There was a low pressure system that was going to be tracking to the east of us, and it was just going to be bringing in these like strong east to northeast winds that kind of funneled right into the tip of Lake Erie, kind of near the Toledo area. And I figured, well, if there's any birds around, they should probably be blown in by these strong winds. And I was like, okay, I'll look for migration like spot or a place that they'd be funneled into just from the direction of the water and the topography. Settled in on the Luna Pier area, and we had a little gull go by, which was one of my targets for the day. I figured it's that time of year, it's when they're migrating, and the winds are perfect to just push it into the lake shore. So after that, we were standing around kind of just talking, and all of a sudden Danny saw what he thought was a northern mockingbird fly into a power line by us. And I was like, oh, cool, okay, I'll grab the camera and look at it. I got the camera on the bird and realized that is not a mockingbird. That is a yellow-bellied kingbird. It's like, whoa, that is like, it was crazy. And we actually initially mis-ID'd it, which is something that it happens. Like, you're not gonna get everything correct. We mis-ID'd it as a western kingbird, which is still, it would have been a cool bird. But once we got the word out and we started looking at photos more, we realized that that was actually probably a tropical kingbird. And then it vocalized and it confirmed for us that it was a tropical kingbird. Was that bird like there for sure because of the weather? It's tough to say. Birds have wings, they fly. They do whatever they want. We're just at the whim of the birds, is what I like to think. But I do think with the winds, the way that the winds were, it was much more likely that it showed up there that day because of the weather than just showing up there in general. So just a few of the photos that I took that month. Down at the bottom is the tropical kingbird that we found. So wrapping up with 2023, I've made multiple Whitefish Point trips because I became good friends with the counter up there. Like Michigan Audubon does a good job of selecting waterbird counters for Whitefish Point each year. And the counter there that year, Mike McBride, was roughly my age. So just being able to meet someone my age that's a birder was pretty cool and was super knowledgeable and everything. So that kind of helped with getting me up there multiple times. And I also ended up, Lake Erie Metro Park, there was Least Bitterern that was sitting out right out in the open, which anyone knows anything about a Least Bitterern, that never happens. They just never are out in the open. So to literally see this bird standing in the middle with like no vegetation around, no nothing, just out in the open in the mud, was just absolutely incredible. Finishing up the year, I also got to see King Eider, the Hammond's flycatcher that showed up, and the Barrow's goldeneye. So with all that, I did miss a few things. There was a green-tailed towhee that I did miss, and Canada jays that I missed, and a limpkin that I just wanted to see for month breeding purposes. I ended up with 315 birds in 2023. I have a little wrap up for 2023, but here's just a few of the photos that I got. The least bitter just standing in the middle, like right out in the open. It's just incredible to see. But yeah, in 2023, I ended up, like, I wasn't trying to compete to be the top birder, like out of some serious competition, but I did end up seeing the most amount of bird species in Michigan in 2023 with 315. I saw 7 tornadoes, so that brought my tornado count up to 102. And I grew a lot as a birder. I learned a lot of how to identify birds, how to anticipate where birds will be. I grew a lot as a photographer and as a person. I made a lot of connections that year, and I was very satisfied with how 2023 went. I got to learn a lot, also for forecasting, for weather, for seeing birds. And I realized, wow, this is really exhausting. It took a toll on my life. It took, honestly, I'll be quite honest, it took a toll on my past relationship. And I know it's a little personal, but that is one of the reasons why that relationship didn't work out, is because of birding. Like, sometimes I feel like I would get a little too addicted. So surely I couldn't do that all over again. I need a break, right? Wrong. I was determined not to do a big year in 2024. I was only going to focus on just like getting lifers or focusing on some photography stuff or storm chasing. I really wanted to get back into storm chasing more. All that went out the window. I'm just too addicted. So I just decided I was going to, I guess, do another big year. So in the wintertime, it was kind of off to a fast start. I ended up getting 100 birds right away in January and February again. For some reason, even though I said I'd take it slow. There were things like a brant that showed up in Lansing, black-throated gray warblers, Townsend solitaire, limpkin again. So I was like, well, if I see a limpkin, I have to maybe see a fair amount of birds. So I did get a couple lifers, but I also went outside of the state, again to Saxon Bog, and saw multiple great gray owls, a hawk owl, and many of those same boreal songbirds that got me interested in birding in the first place. But 2024 also became a storm chasing big year, and that started out in February, which is not common. Normally when you think of tornadoes, you think of May, June, like the spring and summer months where there's a lot of warm, moist air all the way up into the Midwest even. But there are a few times where conditions are right in the wintertime. And one of those times was last year in the end of February. And we saw multiple tornadoes that day. And I actually saw one tornado even on the way home. So I think this will work right. I'll be actually able to show you guys one of those tornadoes. Nope. There we go. So this was actually, it was at night, so you can't really see the tornado the whole time. And that's one of the scary things about tornadoes is, especially at night, is you can't see it. I mean, if you didn't see it with the lightning flashes, like, you would have no clue it's coming at you. So that's one of the dangers, honestly, of severe weather, is you can't see the darn thing. Like, I know it's hard to like describe like how dangerous it can be. Like, sometimes you can't see it. You can actually see me though, down at the bottom. There I am. I'm excited because I'm photographing a cool tornado, which it didn't end up hitting anything. Luckily, this was a tornado that's say just out in the open in random farm country of Illinois.
Do your parents worry about you?
Oh yeah. Mostly my mom, because my dad is like my original storm chasing partner. I always take him every year with me. But yeah, my mom worries to death about me. She questions all the time why I go do this, but she trusts me at this point. So that was that tornado. This was in Hinckley, Illinois. And All right, got it. So just a few photos that I started to get in the beginning of 2024. That darn Lincoln, which I feel like I won't see this year, which honestly might be a blessing in disguise because it'll mean I won't have to do a big year. Different owls that I got to see out in the open, Townsend solitaire. Like I mentioned, I do love like nighttime owl photography. It's a bit of a little niche of mine that I've really come to enjoy. And here's a couple still photos of that storm chasing event. Like I used the long exposures for that tornado, kind of like what I do with owls. Like there's only so much light that's available in the night because it's dark, so you got to make the camera compensate for it somehow. So usually that's with a long exposure, cranked up ISO, and wide open aperture, getting as much light as possible. So I wasn't fully convinced, and I do apologize. There is a little bit of language in one of these chats, but it conveyed how I was feeling at the time talking with Danny Bernard. I was not convinced I was going to do a big year at all. Like I was basically in the mindset of 2023 Isaac would go see all these birds, but not 2024 Isaac. I'm a new person this year. And yet I still went and chased so many different birds. So maybe I wasn't a new person. I went and saw, there was a western meadowlark that had showed up, yellow-headed blackbirds, a western tanager that I finally got as a lifer, yellow-crowned night heron that was out in the open in the Lansing area. So many birds. I added a few state birds and a few lifers, and I got all the way up to 174 birds by the end of April. But no, I'm not doing a big year. I swear, I'm not. I promise I'm not. Instead, I was convinced I was focusing on storm chasing. I had my next storm chase in mid-March of 2024 in Ohio this time. What was not supposed to be a big event ended up being a pretty large tornado outbreak in Indiana and Ohio. I saw multiple tornadoes, including a long-tracked EF3, so another pretty strong tornado. And that was actually my first successful Ohio storm chase. Ohio has been the bane of my existence, for good reason, because it's Ohio. Who likes Ohio? But there's always been severe weather setups, so I figured one of these times I got to see a tornado in Ohio, just because. And that was almost this date last year. So I got I'll include a few more photos, but in April I had a lot more storm chases, and I also saw the total solar eclipse. I don't know if anyone else traveled to see that, but I'm sure you can agree it was a life-changing experience. And I got to see a lot of birds during that. I actually got to see some really cool bird behavior, which I found very interesting. There were a lot of tree swallows that were nesting. I went to actually McGee Marsh to see the eclipse, because I'm like, well, it's McGee Marsh, I can get some birding in, and there's a total solar eclipse, why not? So we got to see all the tree swallows go right into their cavities like it was nighttime. And all the ducks kind of like launched up off the lake and started doing what was effectively evening flight at like, what was it, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon? It was absurd to see, just like the way that the birds behaved during the solar eclipse. So that was something that I was actually really fascinated and kind of hoping that I would see, is the interesting bird behavior, and it sure delivered. The rest of April had a lot of tornadoes for me, including what was the best tornado event of the season for a lot of people. On April 26th, I saw 8 tornadoes that day, and some of them were EF4 or EF3 strength. So that means they did damage a lot of buildings. Unfortunately, one of them, the Minden tornado that I have on there, it did kill one person in Iowa, and that it makes storm chasing, I don't know, at least a sour taste in my mouth, because I love seeing all these awe-inspiring like phenomena in the atmosphere, but I hate knowing that people ended up either losing their lives or their property. So quickly, some photos. The woodcocks, like I mentioned today, that I saw like earlier this week and just in the past few years, that's the kind of views that they give at Mayberry State Park. Right out in the open on the grass pass. I really would recommend anyone that wants to see American woodcocks to go to Mayberry, because they're right out in the open like that basically every day. And that's something I'd be willing to take people out there to see. Like it's something that's become like a passion of mine is the woodcocks at Mayberry.
The library will be closing in 15 minutes. If you have anything to
Alright, I got 15 minutes to get through the rest of this. Some more photos that I took in the spring of last year. And then going into some of the storm chasing stuff, and with the eclipse, the eclipse was just incredible to see. And if someone didn't see totality last year, I didn't go see it in 2017. I thought it was kind of overhyped. It is underhyped. I'm actually going to go to Iceland in 2026 to see totality again, just because it's that cool. So I really recommend, if you haven't seen totality, you got to go see it. You can't explain just the sun going away for 2, 3, 4 minutes. Like it's incredible. Like people that, like I wouldn't have expected to freak out. Like everyone was screaming. Like it was just that amazing to see. And here's a couple of the tornadoes that I saw in late April. That major outbreak. The one on the right is the Minden tornado actually. And then the one on the left is one of the ones in Nebraska that I saw. So May of 2024, birding actually kind of took a back seat for me. I still added multiple birds. I added 77 species in May somehow, but the focus was really on storm chasing for me and being able to see that side of nature. I did get multiple lifers though. Yellow rail and king rail were lifers for me. And there was also the amazing auroras that happened in May 10th. I don't know if anyone got to see those, but that was something phenomenal to see. But going into late May was probably like my best week of storm chasing I've ever had. It started out in Iowa for what was a fast-moving tornado event, but I got to see 3 tornadoes this day, including what is now the notable and not legendary, but very well known in the storm chasing community, the Greenfield tornado. This tornado had winds that were measured up to 318 miles per hour, which is some of the strongest winds ever recorded in the history of Earth by mobile Doppler radar. And I got to see that. I got to see the tornado when it had like the highest winds like ever recorded. It was actually ripping wind turbines apart. Like those large, tall wind turbines that usually if a tornado goes through it, nothing happens. They were quite literally picked up, shredded, and just thrown. Like it was a tornado that had just incredible power to it. Definitely, I would look up the Greenfield tornado, some videos, maybe when you get out of here, just to see the power of that tornado and the power of the tornado ripping the wind turbines apart. Storm Chaser did get that on video. Not me, sadly, but another one did. But 2 days later, I flew out to Oklahoma and I got to see what was the El Dorado tornado. Another tornado that had winds well over 250 miles per hour, measured by mobile Doppler radar. So I'll quickly go to that. So this is a little bit of a different experience for seeing a tornado because this is, of course, not when it was dark. This was out in the late afternoon. So this was just a different view that I got to see, and it was actually what I'd say is my best Oklahoma tornado because I don't get to see tornadoes in Oklahoma that much. I just kind of don't like storm chasing there. I like, if I'm in the plains, I like Kansas a lot better. But here you get to actually see like just the rotation of the tornado really well. You get to see it just rapidly spinning, dust being blown out ahead of it. There was, what was cool was there were common nighthawks in the inflow of this thunderstorm and tornado, like just flying around, gliding, fighting the inflow winds that are just feeding into the storm. That was something that I really wanted to get on video, but I just wasn't able to. But to see like birds being impacted by the weather like this was bizarre, and it made me think about, wow, there's maybe in the path of this tornado there were birds that were potentially hit, like nothing I could do about it, but it made me think about just not only the human aspect but the nature aspect of being impacted by tornadoes. Like now this tornado is getting kind of more rain wrapped almost, where you can't see it, it's kind of wrapped by precipitation. So at that point, we're going to shift our position and then try to go see it at a different spot. So just a few photos that I got from May. A black-throated gray warbler had shown up at Tawa State Park. That was very cooperative for birders and photographers to see, and as well as a Wilson's phalarope. Right before I went storm chasing in May, I got to see that beautiful female out in the open. But May, of course, had a lot of tornadoes and auroras, and that was my main focus, was being able to see just the incredible phenomena of the atmosphere like that, and being able to document it, and then just look back at it and share it with others, and just share the magic. Sharing the magic is something I've tried to embrace a lot the past couple of years, and sharing the auroras with different people, even my coworkers that are not, feel like they're more like manly men, like they work, we work basically underground, like manual labor for water mains. So to get them to come out with me for the auroras and be able, they were awestruck. That was something that was very special to me. And then a couple of the tornadoes that I saw as well. The one on the right is the Greenfield tornado, like one of the strongest tornadoes on Earth. And then the one on the left was one of the tornadoes that happened before that. Then going to that next event 2 days later, the El Dorado tornado. That's just a couple of the photos that I got. You can tell that the photos sometimes do, I don't know, can capture the scene a little better than video, with just being able to edit for the high dynamic range that storms will give. Storm photography is a lot different than bird photography. Storms aren't moving at like quickly darting around like a bird is. So you can sit back and play around with your camera a little more when you're photographing a storm. So June is right when I got back into birding, and I ended up doing a big month for June in 2024. And this is where I got to see a lot of different birds, like a snowy plover, the black-tailed gull that showed up. Kirtland's warbler was something that was very special to go see. I know that's a fan favorite in Michigan, and for me as well. I love the Kirtland's warbler a lot. So I got to push my total all the way up to 281 for the year in Michigan, and I saw 214 bird species in June. And June is normally what's considered a dead month, the summer, like the summer doldrums. So to be able to go see that many different birds, it was very fascinating to just to see that much in what is normally considered not a big birding month. And at that point, I had fully accepted, I'm doing a big year. I'm gonna stop denying it. I might as well try again. So some of the different birds that I saw up in June, the black-tailed gull was very special to see and get good identifying photos of. But once I got past June, that's when things slowed down a bit more. I kind of focused a little bit more on photography and like going out, not just in Michigan, but going out of state. And I kept missing that great-tailed grackle that had showed up though. I missed it because I was out in Oklahoma at first in May, and then I kept missing it in the summertime. But it was nice to have a needed break after an intense amount of birding in June of 2024. Just a few of the photos that I was able to get in July and August, still doing storm chasing as much as ever. Getting able to see American Dipper was really special out in Colorado. It was a bird that I've wanted to see for a long time, so it's something I definitely want to go back and get again. And just being able to experience the beauty of nature, not just in Michigan, but all across the country. Like, I just recommend, like, if you can, to just travel as much as possible and just see as much as possible. Life is short, as much as that is unfortunate. So that's birding has really taught me to just embrace life, embrace the beauty of nature, and just see as much as possible. So going into the fall, this is when I got back to using weather for forecasting different birds. Lighthouse Park in St. Clair County by Port Huron, that is a great lake watching spot. And that is a spot that I frequented a lot in the fall, along with Whitefish Point. And there was a lot of different Jaegers that I got to see, different gulls that I got to see, red phalarope, shorebirds as well, all from forecasting. A few more photos, but just going into, before we run out of time, like really where birds and weather combine is lake watching. It's honestly one of my favorite forms of birding. Standing out there, freezing my butt off on either Lake Huron or Lake Michigan. I don't know why I love it so much, but I do. So being able to use different weather maps and weather models to predict exactly where the wind is going to be, and then being able to see, oh, if there's going to be like a strong northeasterly wind, I should go to Lake Huron and potentially see some really cool birds. Or if I want to go to Whitefish Point, maybe like stronger westerly winds or westerly winds. And I included the site that I use, probably running out of time to be able to go through that, but I just use a lot of different weather models to kind of just look at the winds and see exactly how strong the winds are going to be each day. So getting towards the end of 2024, it was an active month for wintertime. There were a lot of good birds that showed up. California gull was really cool. The Arctic tern, if anyone went and got that up in northwest Michigan. There was also a hawk owl that showed up in the UP, so I went and got that, and got black-backed woodpecker. Did not get Canada jay once again. That is something that just still continues to elude me for my entire time as being a birder in Michigan. Is just I have not been able to see a Canada jay. At some point I will. Like it's one of those things where I've accepted. I'll see it when I see it. But the black-backed woodpecker definitely made up for not seeing the Canada jay last December, because I got point-blank views of that, which was really awesome to see. As well as the astrodome flycatcher that had showed up. That was another, right at the end of the year, that ended up being my 300th and 16th bird. So 2024, I somehow saw more birds than 2023 when I went into the year saying, I am not doing a big year. It ended up being an even crazier for me. Because not only did I see 316 birds, I also saw 40 tornadoes across the United States. I'm not sure anyone has ever seen that amount of birds and that amount of tornadoes in one year. Not just in Michigan, but in general, probably across the whole U.S. I am crazy. A lot of people know me as the crazy photographer or the crazy person. I'll either be army crawling through mud, freezing my butt off in the snow, standing out in the rain. A lot of people know me for just doing whatever it takes to see a bird, get that photograph, see that tornado. I am the crazy person. If there's one thing to take away from today, besides how cool birds and nature are, is that I'm crazy. I am fully crazy, and I admit that, and I embrace it, honestly. So, what's next? Not a big year. I swear, not a big year. I promise I am not going to push myself to do that. I'm going to slow down and just appreciate each bird as they come and focus. I really will swear I will focus on just lifers and photography and doing storm chasing and just interacting with all the familiar and new faces that I meet in Michigan and beyond, and just embracing those connections and just enjoying life and educating other people on the wonders of nature. Like, it's the wonder of nature, baby. How can you not, to quote Twister, how can you not love birds and weather? So if anyone wants to follow me on all of my adventures, like I will be going on a storm chasing adventure tomorrow, most likely. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, eBird, where I post a lot of my bird photos.
Library patrons. The library
So thank you so much, everyone, for giving me your time. I really do appreciate it.
Just a reminder, come out in April, we learned about the